In 1823, the United States issued the Monroe Doctrine, declaring the Americas off-limits to European powers. This bold move by a young nation aimed to prevent further colonization and intervention in the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine became a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy, shaping its interactions with the world for generations. Why did Europe respect the Monroe Doctrine? Historians and political scientists have pondered this for nearly 2 centuries. The answer lies in a confluence of events, shifting alliances, and strategic calculations. Europe's internal struggles and rivalries played a significant role in their acceptance of the doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine stemmed from the United States' desire to protect its sovereignty and prevent European interference. President James Monroe envisioned a Western Hemisphere free from European meddling, allowing the U.S. to grow and prosper. The doctrine was a statement of principle, asserting the U.S. as the preeminent power in the region. The Napoleonic Wars left Europe in turmoil, with revolutions and shifting alliances creating a volatile environment. The Congress of Vienna sought to restore stability, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. European powers, preoccupied with their own affairs, were initially reluctant to confront the United States over the Monroe Doctrine. Europe's reactions to the Monroe Doctrine varied. Russia saw it as an obstacle but focused on consolidating control over Europe. France, recovering from defeat, was in no position to challenge the U.S. Britain, with its global interests, recognized the potential benefits of aligning with the U.S. against other European powers. Initially, European powers viewed the Monroe Doctrine with amusement and disdain, seeing it as unenforceable. They believed the U.S., with its limited military capabilities, couldn't uphold such a bold claim. The doctrine was seen as more aspirational than realistic. The Monroe Doctrine clashed with the principles of the Concert of Europe, which aimed to maintain balance and collective security. The U.S. rejected these principles, asserting American exceptionalism and a unique destiny. European powers viewed this assertion with suspicion, fearing it could upset the balance of power. Spain and Portugal, with lingering imperial ambitions, saw the Monroe Doctrine as a threat to their hopes of reclaiming former colonies. Spain continued to fight independence movements in Latin America, while Portugal harbored concerns about Brazil's independence. The doctrine directly challenged their ambitions, fueling tensions with the U.S. Post-Napoleonic Europe was exhausted, its landscape scarred by conflict, and its people weary of war. The Congress of Vienna sought to restore order, but the task was Herculean. European powers, preoccupied with internal challenges, prioritized reconstruction and recovery over distant confrontations. The Concert of Europe aimed to prevent future conflicts through diplomacy and collective security. The Congress system focused on maintaining peace in Europe, viewing the Americas as a distant concern. The Monroe Doctrine was seen as a potential distraction from more pressing matters in Europe. The ideals of the French Revolution continued to resonate, fueling liberal and nationalist movements. European powers, haunted by the specter of revolution, viewed these movements with apprehension. The Monroe Doctrine was seen as an unwelcome complication amidst their internal challenges. Post-Napoleonic Europe was marked by shifting alliances and national interests. Britain saw the Monroe Doctrine as both a challenge and an opportunity, recognizing the strategic advantages of aligning with the U.S. France and Russia had their own calculations, viewing the doctrine through the lens of their imperial ambitions and internal priorities. Section 2. The Anglo-American Rapprochement. Amidst this complex interplay of national interests, a gradual but significant shift occurred in Anglo-American relations. The War of 1812, A bitter conflict that had pitted the United States against Great Britain for a second time faded into memory, replaced by a growing recognition of shared interests and mutual concerns. Several factors contributed to this rapprochement. Both nations shared a commitment to free trade and open markets, principles that were increasingly challenged by the protectionist policies of other European powers. The British, seeking new markets for their manufactured goods, saw the burgeoning economies of the newly independent Latin American nations as a lucrative opportunity, an opportunity that could be best exploited in partnership with the United States. Moreover, both nations recognized the potential threat posed by the resurgence of French ambitions under the restored Bourbon monarchy. The memory of Napoleon's conquests loomed large, and neither London nor Washington wished to see a repeat of French hegemony in Europe. This growing convergence of interests was further cemented by a shared commitment to upholding the balance of power in Europe. Both Great Britain and the United States recognized that a strong, united Europe, dominated by any single power, would be detrimental to their own interests. The Monroe Doctrine, with its implicit warning against European intervention in the Americas, could be seen as serving this broader strategic goal. The pivotal moment in the European response to the Monroe Doctrine came in 1823, when British Foreign Secretary George Canning made a bold proposal to the United States. Canning, a shrewd diplomat, recognized the potential benefits of aligning British policy with the Monroe Doctrine, using it as a lever to advance British interests while simultaneously preventing other European powers from gaining a foothold in the Americas. Canning proposed that Great Britain and the United States issue a joint declaration opposing any European intervention in the Western Hemisphere. This declaration, Canning argued, would serve as a clear warning to other European powers, particularly France, which was rumored to be considering military action to restore Spanish rule in Latin America. The American government, initially receptive to Canning's proposal, ultimately chose to act unilaterally, issuing the Monroe Doctrine as a statement of American foreign policy rather than a joint declaration with Great Britain. Some historians argue that the American rejection of Canning's proposal stemmed from a desire to assert American independence and autonomy in foreign affairs. The United States, eager to shed its image as a former colony reliant on European patronage, wanted to demonstrate its ability to act decisively on its own. Others contend that the American government, wary of becoming entangled in European power politics, feared that a joint declaration with Great Britain could drag the United States into future conflicts that were not in its national interest. Whatever the reasons for the American decision, the outcome was clear. The Monroe Doctrine, though initially disregarded by European powers, gradually gained a tacit acceptance. Britain, having signaled its support for the doctrine's principles, played a crucial role in enforcing its provisions, using its naval supremacy to deter other European powers from challenging American dominance in the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine therefore became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Initially a bold assertion by a relatively weak nation, it gained credibility and influence over time, shaping the geopolitical landscape of the Americas, and establishing a precedent for American leadership in the Western Hemisphere. In the grand chessboard of 19th-century geopolitics, Britain held a unique and formidable position. As the world's preeminent naval power, its warships patrolled the high seas, safeguarding its vast empire and projecting its influence across the globe. This maritime dominance, coupled with a keen understanding of its own national interests, played a pivotal role in Britain's decision to tacitly support the Monroe Doctrine, a doctrine that, on the surface, seemed to challenge British hegemony in the Americas. British policymakers, however, were not bound by sentimentality or outdated notions of imperial control. They recognized that the newly independent nations of Latin America, freed from the shackles of Spanish mercantilism, represented a burgeoning market for British manufactured goods. The prospect of tapping into this vast and untapped economic potential far outweighed any lingering nostalgia for a bygone era of Spanish colonial dominance. Moreover, a stable and independent Latin America, free from European interference, served British interests by preventing any rival power from gaining a foothold in the region. A resurgence of French or Spanish colonialism in the Americas would not only threaten British commercial interests, but could also upset the delicate balance of power that London had so carefully cultivated in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars. The Monroe Doctrine asserted American dominance in the Western Hemisphere, providing Britain a cost-effective means to achieve its strategic objectives. Britain leveraged American power to safeguard its interests without formally committing to enforcement. This tacit alliance shaped the geopolitical landscape of the 19th century. The implicit threat of British intervention deterred European powers from challenging the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine became a doctrine by proxy, enforced by Britain. The Monroe Doctrine, boldly declared by a fledgling nation and pragmatically upheld by the reigning superpower of the age, stands as a testament to the fluidity of power and the enduring influence of ideas. What began as a seemingly audacious proclamation, easily dismissed by cynical European diplomats, gradually reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the Americas, establishing a new paradigm in international relations. The doctrine's most immediate legacy was the prevention of further European colonization in the Western Hemisphere. While challenges remained, particularly from Spain in its waning attempts to cling to its shrinking empire, the era of European territorial expansion in the Americas had effectively come to an end. The newly independent nations of Latin America, though often facing internal strife and instability, were free to chart their own destinies, albeit under the watchful eye of their self-proclaimed protector to the north. More profoundly, the Monroe Doctrine marked the emergence of the United States as a significant player in international affairs. No longer content to remain isolated from the intrigues and power struggles of the Old World, the United States had boldly declared its sphere of influence, signaling its intention to play a leading role in shaping the destiny of the Western Hemisphere. This assertion of American power and influence, initially met with skepticism and resistance, would have profound implications for the future course of international relations. The Monroe Doctrine's legacy is complex and controversial. Critics argue it served as a pretext for American interventionism and economic domination. U.S. interventions left a legacy of resentment and mistrust. The doctrine's assertion of American exceptionalism has been both inspiring and contentious. It fueled American idealism and commitment to spreading democracy, but also justified American unilateralism. Nearly 2 centuries later, the Monroe Doctrine still sparks debate. Its principles are now subject to reinterpretation in light of evolving geopolitical realities. The rise of new global powers and transnational challenges question its relevance, yet the fundamental questions remain relevant. How should nations balance their interests with international cooperation and respect for sovereignty? What is the role of power in shaping international order? Can a doctrine adapt to the ever-changing dynamics of global politics? These questions challenge policymakers and scholars, reminding us that the past shapes our world today. Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. What are your perspectives on the doctrine's impact on international relations? How do you see its principles playing out in the 21st century? Your perspectives enrich our understanding of this pivotal chapter in history and its continuing relevance in the modern world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and explore our other videos on U.S. foreign policy and global history.